Good morning, everybody. It is really wonderful and deeply gratifying to look out and see so many friends and colleagues and compatriots here at this conference this morning. I'm here as representing the college, so I want to, on behalf of the John Jay community, welcome you to this historic and timely conference with this wonderful title of Race, History, and Policing, a New Vision of Public Safety. So for those of you who are here for the first time, just let me say a few words about our college. We are very proud of our unique role in the world. We are the only academic institution anywhere devoted to the mission of educating for justice. As you walk around our campus today, you will see that we are committed to a very broad vision of justice at John Jay, including social, racial, international, economic, religion, and even, thanks to our English faculty, poetic justice. And of course, at the center of this is criminal justice. We are also committed to making a difference in the world. We are committed to naming and combating injustice, to promoting safety and respect, to organizing research evidence and agency practice and political alliances to make the world a better place. You will see that the students, faculty, staff, and alumni at John Jay, 15,000 students, 60,000 alumni, 400 full-time faculty, 600 plus staff, all of us call ourselves fierce advocates for justice. So since you are attending a conference with the title of Race, History, and Policing, a New Vision for Public Safety, I think you'll feel right at home here at John Jay. This conference represents a timely opportunity to recommit ourselves to the important work underway around the country and around the world. And recent events, including yesterday's just horrific shooting outside our nation's capital, remind us of the urgency of this task. A few years ago, in January 2009, a small and committed band of brothers and sisters working to create safe communities gathered here at John Jay. We remember this day because it was the same day that Sully landed his plane in the Hudson. As we watched that plane come down, we recognized we were witnessing a miracle, but in some ways this gathering was also miraculous. We wanted to explore and promote and to strengthen the groundbreaking work of our friend and our colleague and our guide, David Kennedy, the work that he had pioneered beginning in Boston in the mid-1990s. That work matured after David came to John Jay in 2005. And this work, in the view of this committed band and others around the country, had the potential, we thought, to transform our nation's approach to violence, drug markets, and relationships between the police and communities. So in our discussions on that day, we saw glimpses of even more ambitious goals: reducing our country's over-reliance on prison, promoting the concept of parsimony in the exercise of state power by the justice system, and even addressing, in a small way, the unfinished legacy of slavery. The results of the discussions that day were to launch the National Network for Safe Communities. Little did we know then that the National Network would evolve from a staff of 2 to a staff of 30, that the network's reach to promote safety would be extended in active ways to 60 cities around the country and to several countries around the globe, that the concept of focused deterrence would be validated as highly effective in reducing violence and promoting safety by study after study after study, and that the National Network would extend its reach in a research and development portfolio that now includes the issues of violence in prisons, the role of prosecutors through the new Institute for Innovation in Prosecution, and through the National Initiative for Building Community Trust and Justice with our partners at Yale Law School and the Center for Policing Equity to work on the profoundly important issues of legitimacy, procedural justice, and reconciliation between police and communities that have been harmed by our country's criminal justice policies. Little did we know then that today, in 2017, we would be hosting our third biennial conference, and to attract an audience such as this one that's sold out at a time when this gathering provides an important opportunity to shape the future of our country. So before speaking about that topic, I just want to ask the staff who are here, and they're probably all outside of the National Network for Safe Communities, just to stand and be recognized by all of us here for the work that they've done since that day in 2009. Please just stand up. Thank you. We come together today to celebrate the work that you are doing, all of you are doing, at a time when we can no longer look to our national government for leadership. The mere existence of this convening and the powerful ambition of the conference agenda are, I think, a testament to the fact that the reform spirit in our country is alive and well. So this is indeed a national network representing the very best of our country. You represent 40 jurisdictions from 22 states and 3 countries. Today we welcome 12 police chiefs or sheriffs. We welcome 10 foundations. We welcome 16 academic and research institutions. We welcome 19 nonprofit organizations and 10 policy institutes. So this remarkable collection of thought leaders, advocates, frontline practitioners, scholars, community activists truly represents the best of America. So we thank you, but more importantly, we commend you for the work you are doing and urge you in the strongest possible terms to keep it up. So as you may know, this is the last time that I will meet with you as president of John Jay. I'm stepping down. We're now counting days, not weeks and not months. We're counting days. I step down on August 1st, ready to take on the next chapter of my professional life. I'm very excited that I'll be able to devote all of my time to the criminal justice reform agenda by writing, researching, teaching, and working with you, many of you, on issues of policing, prosecution, and the nexus between social policy and crime. What you do know without my telling you is that I will continue to be vocal and engaged. So as I step down, I do consider that one of my proudest moments of my tenure as president was a day in Bethesda when I asked David Kennedy to come to John Jay to build out his vision, our vision, for new crime policy in our country. And I look with pride at what he and what you have done. This work has elevated John Jay, provided a source of pride for all of us here at the college, and extended our justice mission far beyond the boundaries of our campus. So I'm honored to have played a role in this miraculous story. And I could not be happier to note that my successor will be Carol Mason, former Assistant Attorney General in the Obama Justice Department. That gets applause. Were you starting to applaud? Thank you. So she is, as you know, in talking to her, she is so excited to come to John Jay to continue her work, to lend her voice and her wisdom and her national network, which is considerable, and her really remarkable leadership skills to the mission of this college, and to support the work that you are doing. She is part of this family. So now please join me in watching a video which will kick off our time together, which itself is a powerful presentation of the work of the National Network for Safe Communities. So welcome.
Trust is the foundation to any type of relationship. If the community can't trust law enforcement and law enforcement can't trust community, we're never going to get anywhere.
There is a connection between constitutional policing, public safety, and police and community trust.
If we're going to really have significant reductions in violent crime, we must increase trust of the community within the police department.
And when you look at community, especially communities of black and brown color, the relationship with police departments have been destroyed. The trust has to be built.
I think the state of distrust with community members and police officers is a historical reality. The history of policing, at least in our interaction with them, go all the way back to antebellum slavery.
Reconstruction of the black codes, Jim Crow and separate but equal.
Everyone has seen the grainy footage of how brutal our police department was. I call it policing under the shadow, that even today, what we're doing is colored by our position and our history.
At every era of this country's history, the narration of black folk in dark-skinned bodies has always been one around violence, right? And the response has always been one around force from the state.
Not only were we on the wrong side of history in the 1960s, but we've been on the wrong side of history in modern history.
The war on crime, the war on drugs, the war on poverty, they all sort of inherently became this racialized process where disproportionate numbers of young black men were being arrested, brutalized, sent to jail.
That's the moment when the nation began its march toward what we now recognize as mass incarceration.
The harm we caused in our communities and in our families, we caused harm that I don't think we can fully describe or fully understand. And so when we think about violence in our communities, when people don't see us as a legitimate organization that's going to be trustworthy and fair, they will then begin to take things into their own hands rather than trusting the criminal justice system.
If communities don't feel like when the worst stuff is happening, the state can be trusted to help them, then they handle things themselves. And that creates violence. That is legal cynicism in action.
And so we feel like in order for law enforcement to be seen as legitimate, it's going to have to gain the trust. And in order to do that, it's going to have to change the way that it does its job. And it cannot do that without that process being informed by those who've been closest to the pain over the decades of our story.
The National Network is this ongoing R&D project. It is the creation of people on the ground, on the front lines, who want to do things differently.
Our focus is on the people who are at the highest risk in the most vulnerable communities in the country. And the way the National Network has always worked is to find people who are willing to take on hard questions and willing to break new ground and to work with them to try to figure out how to do better.
The entrepreneurial spirit has extended from the original work on group violence to drug markets to intimate partner violence to violence within prisons.
Overwhelmingly, the community wants to be safe. The thing that we hold most dear is working with communities to help them create the communities that they want.
We have a responsibility to make sure that we have solutions that depend on immediate, measured, targeted responses to the highest risk drivers of violence or those who may be victimized by violence.
One of the most important sort of shifts that we have to do when thinking about gun violence is prioritize victimization.
Offenders are often people that were victims before, and usually the victimization process started very early on. Extreme exposure to trauma.
We have to, in fact, think about this in a way that prioritizes saving people's lives, as opposed to simply looking for criminal justice or punitive solutions.
What we all want is the greatest level of safety for the least amount of enforcement. Because enforcement ultimately is like chemotherapy. Like you'll do it if you have to, but it creates a lot of harm.
It's a recognition that we shouldn't be just going bombing into a neighborhood and blanket enforcement on everyone. We should be focused on that small percentage that the community want us to focus on and will actually help us focus on if we go about it the right way.
So if you can make, say, better, fewer contacts, you can not only do more good, you can actually do less harm. And both of those things, I think, are fundamentally meaningful.
When we work together in our separate lanes, that working together can help drive down violence in our community, and that's where I think there's a lot of value in community-police relationships.
We're seeing the results, and this is the way we do business now.
Well, I think one of the things we don't take into consideration is the things this population has been exposed to. When you live in a community that has a high violence, a high homicide rate, a high shooting rate, we never address the trauma.
I think trauma-informed care helps us figure out how to work with this population. I think so many times in social services, no matter how well intended, it was about checking a box. You're measured on how many services you signed this person up for. That doesn't necessarily work that well with somebody who's been shot or is living in fear of being shot.
So if our goal is to work with this person to keep them from getting shot, then everything we do should intentionally be about that goal. So I think the big shift there has been saying affirmative outreach. We can't wait for people to come to us. We've got to meet people where they are. We've got to find a bunch of ways, big and small, to build trust relationships.
You know, a lot of these guys, man, they've kind of been raising themselves, and having someone who can bring something simple as groceries and then also take the time to sit down and have a conversation. It builds trust. It lets them know that we care.
If all we do is just say we're just going to reform the police, that will never work. None of that can occur unless there are policy decisions that are made at much higher levels.
There are a bunch of prosecutors who have been grappling with what their role should be, what they can do to produce public safety, to heighten legitimacy, to do less harm.
The reality is that the majority of the people that we prosecute are members of our community that will come back to our community. So we want to make sure that whatever we do, we don't increase the harm to that person.
So we have people who are out there on these frontiers, asking and experimenting with different approaches to the role of the prosecutor. And we want to learn from them, we want to encourage them to do more, but we also want to bring them together so they can create sort of common narrative.
I don't know how we can repair the harm and get to a better place unless we start working together and creating an environment where people believe that what we're doing is the right thing.
I'd like to take a moment to address a significant and fundamental issue confronting our profession. The history of the law enforcement profession is replete with examples of bravery, self-sacrifice, and service to the community. It is also clear that the history of policing has had darker periods. There have been times when law enforcement officers, because of the laws enacted by federal, state, and local governments, have been the face of oppression to far too many of our fellow citizens.
What we think of as the usual reform agenda is not going to cut it. We have not faced what got us here, and dealing with that is what reconciliation and truth-telling are about.
For our part, the first step in this process is for the law enforcement profession and the IACP to acknowledge and apologize for the actions of the past and the role that our profession has played in society's historical mistreatment of communities of color.
So the trust building work that's underway is, I think, the most important work that the criminal justice reform movement is engaged in right now.
As a part of this criminal justice system, we've done things that have caused harm. Our police department was not part of the solution. We were part of the problem. Amen.
I think it was important because you can't go into a relationship with unresolved issues and grievances. I think it's important to clear the air, to acknowledge where you are, and then work from there.
It opened up that door by admitting first the faults. When they heard these conversations, we were all kind of looking at each other like, wow. It's like you've been waiting for somebody to say something like this.
We are in the position of power and have been for decades and decades. We, as police officers, police leaders, police chiefs, need to step out and make those acknowledgments first. Then we can begin to talk about the issues after actually listening, active listening from our communities, and then we can start to have that meaningful dialogue.
Well, for us, the idea behind the small circles is face-to-face, uninterrupted, unhindered, truthful conversation.
Why not take the chance to say, I'm not here to lock you up, I'm not here to harm you. In fact, I'm here to protect you.
We're hearing them and they're hearing us, and we want to take it back to the community so that we can learn more about each other, learn how to work together to make our neighborhoods safer.
I think that creates a lot of healing, and that's really powerful, and it makes people want to trust again. That's where we can get real growth.
We can't do it alone. And what I mean by that is that social services cannot do it alone. Community members cannot fight that battle alone. And nor do I think police can. I think that we gotta work together.
In its simplest form, it's about community. Police are a part of the community, not apart from the community. As one community, we work together to help our community.
Now to wear this uniform and to wear this badge and to understand this history, we have no choice. We have no choice but to do the right thing, to serve our citizens with dignity and honor, and make sure this police department is one that they can be proud of.
Could I ask Jeremy Travis to come back out on stage, please? He's tweeting. We are all literally here in this room because of my friend and colleague, Jeremy Travis. I give you, sir, a graphic timeline of your creation of the work that we're doing. No, not yet.
I can look at it, right?
You can look at it. Up here, in 1994, Jeremy Travis, as president, director of the National Institute of Justice, signed the grant that let this little group of us in Boston undertake the Boston Gun Project, which begat Operation Ceasefire and which then begat everything that has been done. Everything that has been done in this portfolio to this moment right here. Jeremy has been an amazing colleague, an amazing friend, and a strategist for this work, and we are so grateful. So we're collectively going to give this to Jeremy, but not yet, because this is going out in the atrium. It will be on an easel under the statue of John Jay, which I think is fitting. And we invite all of you to add your signature and best wishes to Jeremy as he goes off, where he will continue to support this work from a different seat. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
Can't stop now, right?
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, everybody.